Tafshin Tes Zayin, 1955. Okay, we're going to start from Ois Daled. That's after the star in the middle of the page. Inyan de Yaakov Nasa Sukoisa, the idea that it says in our Parsha that Yaakov, after he met Esav, he traveled to Sukkos because that's where he erected these type of shelters for his animals. Hamaduber La'el that was spoken about earlier in the Farbrengen by the Maimer. It came after Yaakov was initially in Lavan's home. The reason why he was in Lavan's home, it was for the sake of the avoid of elevating, refining the sparks. Through this became about a great delight by Hashem. Like it's explained in the well-known Hemshech of Mamorim, that's the series of Mamorim of the year Tafresh Samach Vav from the Rebbe Rashab. And a metaphor from a king that sent his only son for far distances to test his wisdom. Through this, the king has great delight. If not for sending his kid far away, the king would not be able to have this type of delight from his son, only now that he sent him far away. This is the continuation of the matter in the Psukim. Initially, Yaakov was in Lavan's house. Over there, he refined and he elevated the sparks with the sheep of Lavan. This is the explanation of his words to Esav. I had an ox and I had donkeys, soin, sheep, manservants and maidservants. What was the intention of all of these things that he had? It's concerning the sparks that he elevated and refined in the house of Lavan. How did he refine the sparks? Because he was focused on the right thing. The way he was involved in these matters was not that he received from the physical things. In other words, he wasn't interested in the physicality. He wasn't focused on the materialism. He was only involved in them only to serve Hashem. And through this, Yaakov traveled to Sukkos. Yaakov traveled to the Sukkos, like we said, and he built for himself a home, and from his cattle he made shelters, meaning that his cattle was like secondary. Yaakov, who he was, he had a home, but his possessions, they were in a temporary dwelling. More specifically, in the manner of concerning the manner of the refinement of the sparks of Yaakov in the house of Lavan. It says at the beginning of the parsha, in Lavan Garti, I lived with Lavan. Rashi explained, V'taryag mitzvahs shomarti, and I kept the 613 mitzvahs, because the word Garti is the same letters like Taryag, 613. So what's the association? What's the connection? What's the connection between living by Lavan and keeping 613 mitzvahs? Hapirish din Lavan Garti, who the meaning that I lived with Lavan, shekol ha'inyanim shel Lavan ha'arami, all the matters of Lavan, who was the Aramean, kol advarim agashmi, all the physical matters, shoyer v'chamoyer, tzoyin v'eved v'shivcha, the ox, the donkey, the sheep, the servant, the maidservant, hayu etzle ba'ofen shel geirus, it was all by him in a way of some foreigner living over there, an alien. Garti Bilvad. It was only in a way that I'm just sojourning over there, like they use the words. Davar Zar, it was a foreign thing to him. She'ein za inyan shaloi. What he was doing in the house of Lavan, that wasn't what he was about. Beisai, but his own house, Neshama Vinyani Torah Mitzvahs, is the soul and matters of Torah Mitzvahs. V'chol advarim hagashmim einam elokum hagerus, and all the physical matters are only like something that's just a foreign thing, that he's far away, it's not him. My father-in-law related in a Sikha, Piska Magid Mezrich, a saying from the Mezricher Magid. This was someone once came into the Mezricher's Magid's home and saw how poor the Mezricher Magid lived. And he was surprised at the poverty that was in the Mezricher Magid's home. So the Mezricher Magid responded to his query, and he said, Sha'amar, he said, at home, it's totally different. And the simple explanation was that the Mezricher Magid was referring to that the world is not his home. The home of his is in Gan Eden, that where things really are. But the Rebbe elaborates to what the home of a Yid is Neshama and Torah Mitzvahs. At home, you need everything. But if you're on the road, the person that's traveling, it's not terrible if the home is not so beautiful, and the furniture is not so beautiful. He's on the road, he's traveling. This means to say, the house of a Yid is a neshama. It's a part of Hashem, mamish from above. Neshama shnasat b'tohiri, the neshama you placed in me is pure. V'hainu shagam b'yoyse lamata, also being down here below. Tohiri k'may b'atzilus, it's as pure as it is in Atzilus. Kivan shoylam Atzilus yesh negam lamata, since the world of Atzilus can be found also down here below. Ukemavur b'arichas b'lukudei Torah, b'iro divra maskal sois osis, like it's explained at length in Lukudei Torah, in explanation of a mimer called Sois Hosis, Sha'atzilus Eino Isham Ergitz L'maylo. Atzilus is not just somewhere, out in outer space. Eliyesh Bechinas Atzilus Gam Ba'asiyah. There is Atzilus also here in our world. Lamata B'Olam Haza Gashmi, down here in this physical world. V'rayel is what's the proof that Atzilus exists down here? That the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu was from the level of Atzilus. So that means he was down here and he was experiencing Atzilus. Also down here below there's a level of Atzilus. Being down here in this physical world, even when he was talking with an Egyptian in close proximity, Loi Bilbal Adover Lamail Atzilus Shabbos does not disturb his level of Atzilus. If a non-Jew, an Egyptian, does not disturb his Atzilus experience, for sure a Jewish body does not interfere with the Neshama's Atzilus experience, that it comes from the level of Tahirahi, it's the level of Atzilus. It's the same idea we find also concerning the Avos. That it says Hashem gave them a taste in this world of the world to come. Being down here in this world, they already had something of the world to come. According to the teaching of Medrash, that there is no generation that doesn't have in it people or a person of the stature of the forefathers of Moshe Rabbeinu. So in every generation there are those also those that are down here below in this world, shines in them the light of Atzilus. So that person or those people enable every Yid to experience something out of this world. Through them, It's easy for every single Yid lahargish to feel shabeisei amitu on neshama, that the true home of a Yid is in neshama. Neshama shenasat b'tahir, the neshama you placed in me is pure. And all physical matters are only like a level of Geulah, that they're only something that is foreign to me. I'm just like a foreigner. Now we can understand the connection between the simple meaning of the pasuk of love and garti with the drash that we said just now. Mitzad zeshim love and garti, because of the fact that I lived with love, but I lived in a way of Geulah, that the physical matters was by him like foreign things. Loy bilbul agashmis lo ruchnius, the physicality did not disturb his spirituality. He had the capability to affect that the 613 mitzvahs I observed, because one leads to the other. If I have my priorities screwed on straight, if I have my head screwed on straight and I know what I'm supposed to be focused on, so then if the physical doesn't disturb me, so then I can focus on the spiritual. You say to myself, even more than this, through the physical matters being in the way, that it's something that's foreign. Not only does the physicality not disturb and disrupt the spirituality, but the spiritual also comes on the physical, until the physical itself becomes spirituality and holiness. Similar to what the Rebbe always explains about the it's not the exact same thing, but it's similar. That in all your ways you should know him. That the spirituality is evident in the physical. Like it concludes in the pasuk, Vayhi shoyer chamer tzoyin ve'eved v'shivcha. It was to me, oxen and donkeys and sheep and servants and maidservants, shekol elu nasim li, all that became to me, la iker v'etzem Yaakov, to the primary and essence of Yaakov. So this is what he's saying, that the physicality became now nullified and sublimated to Yaakov Avinu, to the spiritual. Yaakov, that's also what Yaakov Avinu said in Lavan Garti ve'echaradat, that I lived with Lavan as a foreigner, as we said, and he observed the mitzvahs, and I was delayed up till now. Yaakov mitzad atzma, Yaakov on his own is brought down in Chassidus. By the way, the Rebbe also says a point that from the spiritual levels of Shoyer, Chamer, Tzoyin, Ve'eved, Shivcha, he says this in the footnote. So from that, evolved from that, the physical Vayhi Shoyer, Chamer, Tzoyin, Ve'eved, Shivcha. So then he goes on and says what's brought down in many places in Chassidus, starting from Torah Oyer, that Yaakov on his own, he was already ready to go towards the Geulah. From his perspective, everything was already refined and set up and adorned and beautified for the fulfillment of what was foretold. The Mashiach will come to judge the mountain of Esav. But when Esav invited Yaakov to follow him, so he said, there's the sheep and the cattle, that they are still dealing with their young, are upon me. There's still the young sheep, that are the lambs, that are not yet ready. If they will act in such a way of pressing them to go quickly in one day, to tire them out by going on the road quickly, according to the order that says that one of the ways Mashiach can come is that I will rush it. I will make it quickly. Ozayu mesu kol hatzoyin. Then it says, Yaakov said to Esav, then all the sheep will die. Sheyiyah klois hanefesh mitzad ribuy ha'or. The soul will expire because the great light, therefore all the sparks will not become refined. So Yaakov was saying like this, I'm ready for the Geulah. And like it says in the Haftarah, but the problem is that the world is not yet elevated enough, and if the great light of the Geulah will come about, so the sparks of the undeveloped sheep, the undeveloped things that still need to be refined, those sparks will become lost. They will die because of the great revelation of light. For this reason, Yaakov remained in exile. He told Esav, I will go slowly and follow you later on. So be able to conclude and finish and end in the refinement of all the sparks in an orderly fashion. That's where it says I lived with Lavan and I was delayed till now because of the idea that I lived with Lavan. And what was the reason that I lived with Lavan? Bishvil bir on the for the sake of refining the sparks. Kanal Siv Daled. Nasev Eichad Otot becomes I was delayed up till now, meaning that Mashiach could not come yet because he's still busy refining the sparks. And the Rebbe goes on to say, so too it's in every single generation. The tzaddikim generation are ready already to go to Eretz Yisrael towards the complete redemption. Also lie, but because of the sheep and the cattle that still have young that I need to take care of, the tzaddikim need to wait until all the sparks are concluded and refined. And the Rebbe concluded with Yidin Hashem Yisbarach Hashem should give us should be fulfilled both advantages and both qualities. Hamayla de Be'itav, Hamayla Dachishenam, the advantage that says that there is when Mashiach comes at its time, which is that all the sparks can be elevated, and then there's other advantages if it's sped up. Kimavur b'Shari Oida, like it's explained in the Sefer Shari Oida of the Mittler Rebbe. In each one of these ways, whether Hashem speeds up the redemption or it comes at its time, there's an advantage. And speedily in our days should soon be fulfilled. That will be both Be'ita and Achishana in its time and quickly, meaning it will have both qualities. The Rebbe used to encourage people to go and give over words of Chassidus in the Sholem, and sometimes by Farbrengen he used to say, and this is the point that you have to give over in the Sholem, which is base koiche shall call Yehudi. It's in the capability and the power of every single Yid. Sheyil like kol ha'inyanim, they should have all matters, the shoyer v'chamor tzoyin v'avid b'shivcha, the oxen and the donkeys and the sheep and the servants and the maidservants. Loidak beruchnis, algam begashmis. Every Yid has that capability to have it, not only spiritually but also physically. They should be able to have great wealth. For this, it's demanded in the menu. Ladas, he has to know Shim Lavan Garti. He has to appreciate that I only was a foreigner by Lavan. Kol oil maza ein elagarti. This entire world is in the way that I lived like a foreigner. I'm like Yaakov Avinu said, I'm a foreigner in this land when he spoke to, or the expression, it's actually a pasuk in Tillim. Call Yemesh Neseinim B'Hem Shivim Shonim B'Gemuras Shmeinim Shonim. We say in davening Shabbos, all the days of our years in this world is 70 years, and if we're strong, it's 80 years. V'Hoyu Yom of Me'avesrim Shana, where his years are 120 years. But all of these years, Einam Elagarti. These are all in the way of just being a foreigner. Then the physical things do not become a contradiction and a disturbance for the spiritual, and therefore physically he has everything he needs. He has the ox and the donkey, the sheep and the servant and the maidservant, also in the physical gambagashmis. This is how much more so understood when you look at the redemption from Mitzrayim. If in the Geulah of Mitzrayim, in the redemption from Egypt, that it was a type of redemption that was followed afterwards by other exiles that the Jewish people went to. Still in all, despite the fact that it wasn't a final redemption, the Yidden took along with them all their things from Mitzrayim. Like it says, they emptied out Egypt. Not only that, there was also the spoils that they got on the sea after they left Mitzrayim, after the splitting of the sea. The Chazal say that in comparison to the spoils that they got on the sea, what they took out of Mitzrayim was insignificant. So if that was the way it was then, how much more so Begula Asida Geulah Shlema Shein Achara Golus, in the future redemption, that's a redemption that'll be complete, that no Golus will follow it. Allah's Kam V'Kama Shenichimonu is Kola and Yon and Beruchnis and Begashmis. How much more so that will take along with us all matters, both spiritual and physical. Like the Rebbe in later years pointed out that some people are scared that that if Mashiach comes, they're going to have to give up their houses and their properties and their wealth, etc., etc. The Rebbe says just the opposite. We are going to take it all with us. And here he brings a kal v'chomer. If from Mitzrayim we took everything, not just our own wealth, but the Egyptians' wealth with us, how much more so in the final Geulah. Since the general, the macro Geulah, the macro redemption, is dependent upon the micro redemption, the small redemption of every one of us redeeming our own self, like it's explained in Tanya. It's dependent upon how one acts in a way that with love and I have lived, and I've been a foreigner, I remove, so it's understood, through acting in such a way of looking at the physical and the material things as something only secondary and ancillary, and they're only there to serve the higher purpose. We have all matters both spiritually and physically. So the Rebbe says, connects it with next parsha, because this is Farbrengen on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we already read in the afternoon the next week's parsha. So the Rebbe says, the above mentioned concept is also associated with Parshas Vayeshev, From Parshas Vayishlach, we are now going over Shabbos by Mincha time to Parshas Vayeshev. The Parshas Vayeshev, Medubaroidus inim mechiras Yosef shoisas cholos hagolos. In Parshas Vayeshev, it relates about the sale of Yosef by his brothers. And that was the beginning of exile. And as we know, that from Mitzrayim came all the other exiles. So really, Vayeshev talks about how exile began. But the truth is, the entire reason why the descent wasn't to Egypt was so that Yosef should collect all the food. That when the brothers came to him and they said, we're begging you to have compassion upon us. He said, why would I be upset at you? My whole purpose that I was sent over here was to bring you life. That through this comes out that this was not a descent. The sale of Yosef was really the beginning of the ascent that later would result in Yosef saving his whole family and the whole world by gathering all the food in Mitzrayim to protect against the famine. The commission is boiled. I was explained previously in the Maimer. When the intention of a person is not to receive from the physical, so then the involvement with the physical, so not only does it not drag him down, that's the opposite. It causes in the person an increase. Because the physical has a very high source, and therefore the physical now empowers him and makes him grow. It's no matter of exile. When we use the exile in the way it's supposed to be, early, that like it says that when I sit in darkness, but Hashem is still light to me, through that becomes an increase in advantage. It'll become revealed when Mashiach comes speedily in our days.